All right, welcome everyone to City Council pre-council meeting for August 24th, 2023. Assignment of the prayer on Monday night will be to Cheryl. You have the minutes for July 24th. Go ahead and take a look at those and be prepared with any corrections, additions, or deletions. You also have the budget report for January 1st through July 31st. And Mayor, if you could give us a quick rundown.
Sure. With more than 58% of our year completed, our revenues are more than 74%, and our expenditures are around 43%, so our performance is better than budget in both categories.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
Any questions from council and from anyone in attendance this evening? Take a look at those at the budget and be prepared on Monday evening if you have anything else. We do have a department update from Robin, Director of Public Works. Rob?
Hey, good evening, everyone. So as of August the 18th, I have completed my 9th year with the city. I'm now starting my 10th. But as you know, my retirement date is out there. So this will be my last meeting that I am able to share information for the department. So that's kind of exciting. I'd like
For
to-
you.
Well, it's been 37 years of being in this field, and it's a long time. And I had a long conversation with the mayor, and I said, you know when it's time. So the time has come for me. I know I'm going to miss a lot of people and miss doing a lot of things, but the next part of my journey is out there, so I'm going to hit it with both feet. So I'd like to talk to you about the update with the streets. So everyone knows it's kind of chaotic. It continues to be chaotic a little bit. But the good news is, you know, we're progressing through everything. So the Lehman Street project is finished. That one is over and done with. The 9th Street project is our third phase. The south side still is not finished because we're waiting for the authority to finish their work and get out of the way so we can get them back in here to finish. Once that's done, then the 9th Street project will be finished, you know, with the exception of the final touch-up of line painting and things like that. Maple Street will be done as soon as UGI is finished with their work, which we're hoping will be by the end of August, which is next week. 7th Street, the same thing. They're telling us by the end of August that they'll be out of our way. If they haven't completed their work, we do have an incoming director that has developed pretty good relationships, and I'm sure he'll be out helping them along. 12th Street is completed. Washington Street is completed. 11th Street is completed. 16th Street is completed. Oak Street is completed. Chestnut Street is completed. And Lincoln Avenue is completed. So those are a lot of stretches of streets that really needed to be done. And, you know, the investment has been made. So we have a good 25, 30 years before hopefully we need to be in this situation again. Once 7th Street and Maple Street are finished, those are pretty long spans of roadway that are being overlaid. So I think that's going to be a good positive for the city as well. The hope was to get everything done to the point where all of our major north, south, east, west corridors are in good shape. So that's where we're at with that. As you know, the streetscape is progressing. I think it's going well. I think the work that's being done is of good quality. I think when it's finished, there shouldn't be too many complaints, I wouldn't think. You know, the antiquing stamped concrete that they've done is beautiful. I think that's really sets the tone for the downtown. So with that, those of you that were here will remember, I believe it was my first report that I gave to council that I did stormwater. So I felt it was probably a good time for my last report to council to talk about stormwater. So that's what we're going to be talking about this evening a little bit. So as you know, we strive to do our best management practices with our stormwater facilities. We have a lot of natural swales throughout the city, and we also have hardscape underground piping, catch basins, inlets, just over 1,200 of those. So it's a lot to stay after everything. And it's also very important that we continue our education to the public. That was one of the key pieces that I tried to bring to the table when I began with the city. And I just want to reiterate that it's very important to continue this education. I think over time we get a little bit lackadaisical and we just don't think of things the way we should and do things as, for the best of the city. So with this, the first slide I have, I'm going to, this is not my thing. Thank you. This is why it's time for me to retire and let the next generation come in. Okay, so we have to acknowledge that in the county of Lebanon, the majority of our streams are impaired. When we did the first initial presentation, we were at over 95% impaired streams. Unfortunately, that number, even though we're striving really hard to make it better, it's not reduced quite as far as we would have liked it to be at this point in time. With the consortium, we do have a lot of very large projects that we're working on in conjunction with neighboring municipalities that will give us huge quantities of reduction. Those are items that I'm hoping will be reported in the not too distant future. But the whole purpose of stormwater management is to take the efforts necessary to provide clean streams for clean water for residents who rely on that as a source of drinking water. And also, to take it one step further, it's also just as important to worry about our underground aquifers where, pollutants go through the ground and get into those underground streams that may be wells to residents as well. So we need to keep that in mind. The staff makes it a habit that when they come across these inlets that have trash and debris in them, they remove them on a regular basis. It looks like that's not a big deal, but when you have 1,200 of them, and that's actually kind of a minor one that I photographed, I'm sure you have seen some that have been a lot worse, but the message always is every little bit hurts. So every piece of trash that gets through that, as it's sitting on the back wall of that inlet box, once it gets into that stream conveyance, it will make it to the waterway. So multiply that by 1,200, it's a pretty significant number. So how do we access these boxes? So as you can see, they're pretty large. We have a crane truck where we actually use to lift those grates off. Some of them are deep enough that they actually have ladder access to get down into them. This particular one was over on Church Street. No, that's incorrect. I apologize. It's on Skull Street, the new section that was paved not too many years ago to extend it. So that's where that one is. At that point in time, the authority was there. There had been an issue with it, with the flow. They actually used their camera system to go down in. The person that's standing there with the glove in his hand is actually Donnie Peffley. So he was with the authority, they went down in, they did the camera to make sure everything was working properly. So when it comes to accessing these boxes, easy does it. It's very heavy, can be dangerous because of confinement, but that's how it's done. Another thing is the interior of the channels. This is a channel that we clean. We try and do it annually. It's based on when we have our summer help with us to help with kind of the handwork. So there are grunt guys, and they get in there and they start just taking and cleaning up and getting rid of the grass and going through and getting rid of all the trash. Sometimes it's truckloads that we take out. Sometimes people are just dumping it over the banks, so we have to educate them that that's not what you do. So here's one step closer to the waterway, which is going to be the theme here this evening. And this is after it. So as we get into these channels that we can work through, we continue to clean them on a regular basis, that this is what they should look like and not this. So what you're looking at, I know the pictures are a little small, but that is our channel. That shows the whole width at the one area where the intake is. When we start talking about reductions and 10% reduction, and what does that mean? I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot, but all the debris that you see on the left-hand side is all items that need to be cleared and removed. When you have live vegetation, that eventually turns into nitrates, which is another pollutant to your waters and to your water system, your ecosystem. So we continue to do everything we can with our man-made structures to make sure that they're well maintained and cleaned on a regular basis. So let me talk to you a little bit about the grass. I mean, that's another one. This is a photo from 2017. And I've started my education by actually sending letters to residents and businesses that we have seen intentionally blowing their grass out into the streets. You can see the close proximity to the inlet there. And it happened that it rained right after they mowed, and all that grass went into that inlet eventually. So it made me think, well, if that's one, what about the rest of the properties in the city, and what does this really mean? So we made an assumption that if each parcel in the city had, let's say, 1,000 square foot of grass to maintain, and they would blow that out into the street, over time, that produces 300 pounds of cut grass per growing season. So you multiply that by all the parcels in the city of Lebanon, you're looking at 7,410 ton of grass through a growing season. So if everybody would do that, that would be over 7,000 ton of grass that would be out in our streets. We're trying to educate homeowners and businesses that when they mow, to use self-mulching decks, because it has been proven over and over that is the best and most beneficial natural fertilizer to your yard that there is. So being able to remulch that grass back into your yard is the best thing you can do for it. Over time, you'll see it fill in, and you'll have a gorgeous yard, and you'll be saving the inlets and the waterways from that contamination. So some of the things that we do each year is we go through and we look at and assess our system as a whole, and where we're having issues, what can we get the biggest bang for the buck? I mean, that's always the bottom line, is the dollars, unfortunately, but we have to be frugal with what we do and how we do it, and still have the best effect. So we have an engineer who we consult with. He helps us to kind of go through and take inventory, and we work through that together. We have federal government funding that's been provided for certain things. I mean, as we know, the ARPA money, when it first came out, was for stormwater pretty much strictly, and then later on they kind of opened it up to other things. So it was for stormwater and water, drinking water. So 3 of the projects that we selected for this was the underground connectors at 5th, 6th, and Cumberland, those 2 intersections, and also the intake area at 4th and Peach, which is where the channel actually starts. That had been damaged with Storm Lee. It has been on our radar, so we have it ready to go to bid. Fifth and Sixth and Cumberland, unfortunately, might be a little bit problematic. We found that Med-Ed, as the utility, has a lot of underground ductiles, and we're having some problems trying to figure out how to compensate for that. So the biggest concern is, even though we're ready to go with it, and in fact, I think we had bid it once and we had to withdraw the bids because of this issue. The concern is we're going to run out of time with the money line items, so.
And if I can just jump in, we had put in a pre-planning and design stage, a PA1 call, and Med-Ed had cleared it. So that's why we moved forward. So just want to throw that out there.
And that's a very important part. So when we go through, we go through and we look at what's affordable, what can we handle in a one-year time frame? What staffing do we have available? What are our goals for each of these areas? What do we want to achieve? What's the end game? So that is a whole, like, months of just planning, just talking about it. Then, somebody will say, no, I saw this was bad, so we kind of put everything on the table as staff and we just work through it piece by piece with the engineer. So one of the other things that we did, one of our projects that we did, is we utilized Lebanon High School. They have a biology department of young students that are very interested in learning about nature and eco and, what makes things better. I think that's enlightening in this day and age. And we give them hands-on projects that they come out and they dig, they clean, they do whatever we ask, and they learn from doing that, and they remember it. So it's a partnership that we've created over time that we really want to continue with. There's nothing better than having those students have the ability to do hands-on work. So when we did some of these things, one of the things that we looked at that was a big problem, still continues to be a problem to a degree, is South Lebanon, when it starts coming in at Jadel Drive. We did a lot of work there. We did a lot of natural buffering in there. The biggest problem we have is they have cornfields in their area, which is right at their discharge point. And when those dry stalks at the end of the year cutting and the rain hits, then that's what we have. That whole area is all of that corn stalk trying to move through into the city. So we had to figure out ways to create natural buffering, and it actually captures a lot of that. I mean, we still have to have staff go in and clean it all up, but it's not blocking our waterway, it's not blocking our intake, it's not creating the flooding that had been experienced over time. I don't recall, since I'm here, other than one time that it got close to really being overtopping the curb since this project was done. So I think that's a great success story. We plant a lot of trees, we're battling nature with nature is the theory. That's the best way you have of capturing debris with, man-made trash. So this is just a photo of an example of, this is a trash grate. You can see it looks almost like a beaver nest there, but that's actually a working trash grate that has captured everything coming downstream. So before it went into that pipe, that trash grate captured it. And that is one of our areas that to this day we clean regularly after storms and before storms to make sure it's clean and clear. And that keeps it from flooding the properties in that neighborhood. This is probably one of the largest natural stormwater facilities that the city has. This connects the Green Waste Recycling Center on 8th Street, and it runs all the way through to Hutter's on Maple Street.
The green, obviously, it's the green, kind of like kidney bean
Yep.
shape in the middle. And then just to the right at the top is where the yard waste facility is on 8th Street.
More like a footprint.
Okay. But that goes to the back of what we know as Hutters. So one of our
This was,
projects with the school was to plant trees in there, and we have some trees. And just this past Saturday, the Lebanon Valley College football team does projects once a year before they start their football season, and they went in there and cleaned out trash and debris for us.
We own that?
yes.
Yes.
Property is
Yes.
city.
That is city-owned. And like I said, as far as I know, that is the largest natural swale stormwater control area that the city has. So again, like I said earlier, your groundwater has to be considered as well. You know, what you put on top of the soil eventually will go down through the soils and get into your underground aquifers. So looking at this is that project area. We planted a lot of new trees. That was done with the school students. There's another view of it. And another view of it. So to understand it, it's basically all about the science. So it's all about what's going on the ground level as to how it's going to affect everything else related to it. You know, what we do is going to make the difference of what we have. So, you know, we always ask residents if there's something that they see that, you know, doesn't look quite right, or if it's like, you know, they see people like being destructive to these areas, that they contact the local police department, that we can kind of get it in check. You know, these investments are large and expensive, and in order to keep them working correctly, they have to be monitored. So we have been utilizing our township staff a little bit more. Some of our guys have gotten pretty handy with trowels and concrete and, you know, rebuilding our boxes. So this is an example of one that needed to be rebuilt. I mean, and it was rebuilt completely. It had completely crumbled. So they've been doing a great job. So when you see that, that's our guys at work. They've learned the trade well. And we have invested in a camel truck that is used to jet those boxes and clean them out. So I'm just going to kind of show you a couple of slides with that. This is them setting up at one of the boxes. You know, they see the grates that they use the cranes to pull the grates off. They're lining the hose up to get down into the basin there. See how lovely it is. That is all sediment that has collected and is on its way to our waterways. This was one of the main reasons we had pushed to get a jet truck, a camel truck like this, because it has the ability to pressure wash and vacuum, which is really what we need to do this box. And hopefully this works. It's just a little short video. So you see the little bit of water there, and they're moving the hose to get into that sediment. And you see how they're just pulling at it and it back into that truck. So we have an agreement with Anvil Township for their wastewater treatment plant. They actually have drying beds, so that's where the sediment goes, and then it dries, and then they dispose of it. So that's another good partnership that we've developed with neighboring municipalities to kind of keep this process going. Yes?
How frequently do they clean those boxes?
So the boxes should be cleaned at least once every 4 years, but we have some that we know are problem children, so to speak, that, you know, they continually get sediment in from upstream flows. So those we monitor, and they do visually inspect them when they're out in the road. But once every 4 years should do it, depending on the depth of the box. Yes?
Before this.
To mine, No, to my knowledge, I'm not aware that they were clean to this degree. Um, It was a little bit different because when you had the prior administration, you had, the authority was with the city and they had a lot of this equipment, so they could do a lot of this kind of cleaning. Um, There was not a regular cleaning schedule that we had located. Oh, absolutely. We actually had to bring another company in that has heavier equipment and a stronger vac system than what our truck even is to help us get through everything. And we actually had them do all of the streets that we are now paving to make sure everything was done. And they did the full inspections, and there were boxes that had that much sediment in them. They actually had to take digging irons and chisels to loosen it up because they just couldn't get it loosened. It was like concrete in there. They found boxes where there actually was concrete in them, that, people that were doing concrete jobs in the neighborhood thought, oh, there's a good place to put it. They'd rinse their tools and they'd rinse their hoppers and down in the, that's where it went. And, it would dry in there and they found that. Asphalt. They found boxes that were loaded with asphalt that they had to chisel out. So it's been, I mean, the city has really been putting a lot of energy into getting everything where it needs to be. That was one of the main things when I started. I know they had a finding here at the city for not taking care of these, not providing education, not doing outreach, not involving other partnerships. So,
Not this administration, no.
so,
Right.
yes. You're very welcome. So yes, it's been a lot, I've devoted pretty much 9 years into stormwater. I think everybody that serves on council knows that's one of the things we talk about at some point in time. So yeah, I've been pretty passionate about it because, I would like to make sure that all future generations have the ability to have clean water. I mean, I think that should be their right. So if there's any questions other than, that's my presentation
Yeah.
for this evening.
I have a few questions.
Okay?
I think this is on. So, in the beginning of your presentation, you stated that the majority of the streams are impaired. Um, what is that classification, and what draws that out of that classification? What draws a stream out of that classification, if that makes sense?
Okay. So there was a group that went through all the watersheds in Lebanon County and did sampling. So they did sampling on water quality. They did photographing of, the waterway itself, the condition and health of it. Does it have a lot of sediment pockets in it? Does it have legacy silt anywhere? Does it have, invasive trees, so they did a complete assessment of all the streams in Lebanon County. And they found that, like I said, roughly 95% of them were impaired
That's countywide.
countywide.
But Pennsylvania is in the same boat, right?
Right, Pennsylvania is just as bad. And that was the case, I know years ago, that they used to have, a lot of times they had like water mills set up for like grinding things, so those all had to be cleaned out and removed. I mean, it's been years of getting it to this point. It wasn't like an overnight thing. So we have to understand it's going to take years to get it back to healthy water streams. But if we don't work at it now, we'll never achieve it.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then going back to in the very beginning with the street repaving and projects and stuff, I had a couple people ask me about those green kiosks or charging stations. I think every 2 spots on Cumberland Street. and what exactly those are, and I actually wasn't sure, so I was wondering.
So
you guys-
those are going to be the source of electricity for the lights in the trees, and also when we have special events downtown, the vendors will be able to plug into there for special events. They'll be locked until there's a special event, and then, of course, for the holiday lighting as well. They're going to be black. There was a mistake made, not by the city, but by another agency working on the project, and at their cost, they're being painted black to match the Victorian streetlights and whatnot. So it's just, I think the first 20 were mistakenly green, so the rest of them, when they're installed, they'll be black.
Perfect, now I know. And then my final question, so 9th Street paving is complete.
Except for the southern end, which will go from the Poplar Street where the signalized intersection is at Poplar, south to just beyond 241.
Okay. So with that, just driving through, and this is just anecdotal, just some of my observation and stuff, but I was curious, there was a requirement for property owners wherever the engineers dictated that curbs needed to be replaced, or that they didn't come to whatever the stipulation was for them to be ready for the paving. Driving along, it doesn't look like all of them have come up to compliance, but the paving is complete. What is the path forward and with
So,
that, and how does
okay.
the city
That's
address that?
a very good question. I'm glad you asked that question.
Good.
So what we have done, we made the decision, we understand that that replacement is extremely expensive. We know because of what we had to do for the city properties. We knew that. So what we've done is we've put those properties in non-compliance. So they've not been fined, they've not been given a citation like everybody thinks, but they have a non-compliant status on our books. With the paving of the streets, we have a 5-year moratorium, so no one, unless it's a bona fide emergency, no one can cut into these new streets. That was something that PennDOT and the Federal Highway was very strict with us about they knew we can't guarantee it, but they want it controlled because it's a huge investment. So after 5 years, if they've saved the money and they want to do their curb, they can do it at that time. But if they go to sell their property, it will be listed on their buyer notification certificate that they are out of compliance and that their sidewalk and/or curb had not been completed in the timeline that was given. And then they'll have to negotiate that at the table at the time of sale. We also have stipulated with them that if they did not comply, then the city would not be liable if rainwater overtopped their substandard curb, or heaven forbid, a car jumps the curb and goes into their house, because that was the purpose of the new curb, was to help control the flow of the water and to help keep the vehicles in their lane path. So yes, there was no one, we didn't call the police to put them in cuffs and take them to jail. We didn't give them a citation. It's just that their property is listed in non-compliance.
So once that 5 years comes up, then it'll be readdressed, or after the 5 years if they go to sell, or I guess it would, carry on at
Correct.
sale, so. Okay.
Correct.
I think
We
that
would,
answers
we would
my-
encourage everyone to make sure that they're safe. I mean, sidewalks, we can't be as lenient with, but with the curb lines, because the money became available, we were moving along as fast as we were. We knew it was going to be difficult.
I knew there was a similar issue, I think, more with the time with COVID. What was the term? It was a waiver at the time because of COVID, even though the project was still moving forward.
All of it wasn't necessarily because of COVID. I mean, COVID was just an additional unfortunate,
Layer.
had a financial impact on people, of course. So that was also in the consideration of this plan, but all 4 phases of the 72 and 422 resurfacing project, they're all being handled that way, all phases. so that we're treating everyone equally.
Okay. Sounds good. That's all that I have. Thanks.
Okay.
Mayor, I know you had a concern with the curbing around the Old Northwest. Was that? I know
They
they
got
were
it-
up against.
They got
some-
it done.
They did get it done.
Yeah, they
Good.
had to do extra, like with flowable fill and things like that, in order to make sure it didn't, that it didn't settle, because if you don't use that, then it could settle, and then it could, have a detriment on the newly resurfaced road. So they had to actually spend a little bit of money and do a little extra in order to have the curb done at such a late time.
And then one of the adjustments that we did with that project then is where Maple Street turns into 10th
Okay.
Street, they actually moved their sidewalk back beyond their right-of-way and paved it so that they have a better turning radius for the trucks, and that way the trucks aren't jumping their curbs on a regular basis and damaging them. So it was a benefit to us to a degree by allowing a little bit of widening of that lane, and then it also is going to save them some money.
But
Great.
that change was still in our right-of-way, so it didn't require any additional lands to be given or provided to the city. It's just like Robin indicated, their sidewalk was, like most of the sidewalks, were already in the city's right-of-way, and they just pushed them back onto their property.
Okay, great. Richard, anything?
Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
And any questions from anyone in attendance? Robin, thank you. I'm surprised that Chad's not here I thought maybe he's going to have to do this on his own then next year.
I'm going to make it a surprise for him. He doesn't know what he's getting into
Okay.
yet. So August next year,
All right,
I'll be watching YouTube. How's
I'll
that?
be here. Well, thank you, Robin. and Thank you for your many.
Better things to do than that. Okay. All right.
Thank you, Robin. And your last, you're finished you retired?
October will be the last council meeting.
October will be my last.
Council meeting, okay, all right. So no goodbyes
No,
tonight,
no,
okay, all right. Okay, moving on for Monday night's agenda, under communications, Mayor Sherry Capello informing council of the reappointment of Vincent Garcia to the City of Lebanon Design Review Board for a term of 5 years, effective July 22nd, and also, well, Mayor, just a
Yeah.
little background there.
Thank you.
I'll do them one at a
so-
time.
So the Design Review Board is something that was created in the city's zoning ordinance in June of 2020, and it is a 7-member board, and the term, as you indicated, is 5-year terms, but because we were newly forming this board, we staggered 3 of the terms. And Vince there's a representative from either the Conservancy or the Historical Society, which is Richard. There's the Main Street Manager or a member of the Lebanon Foundation, which that would be Vince's role. And then a staff person from the city's Economic and Community Development, which is Janelle, a downtown property or business owner, which is Guadalupe Barbara, an artist, Dorothy Perez, which we'll get to her, a member of City Council, which is our chair, and a representative from the Lebanon Valley Council of the Arts, which is, that's who's, the other appointment is Courtney Raymond. So Vin is representing the Lebanon Foundation, and he's a board member of the foundation. He's also a CPA and began his professional career in 1992, and he's a principal at Garcia, Garman, and Shea, and he's been a member of CLA and the Lebanon Foundation for a very long time. So he, again, is in that role, and he has agreed to a reappointment. So this is a reappointment for Vin.
And Vin sits on another board, does he not, Mayor? Or is that the only board he's sitting on for the city? I might be mistaken. Okay. Okay. Well, we appreciate Mr. Garcia staying on the board.
I mean, he's helped with and been a part of planning for like the visioning of the downtown and different things like that. So he's always been involved in the community.
Okay. I don't know why, I just thought he was on another board. All right. Any questions from council? And from anyone in attendance? And the second item under communications from Mayor Sherry Capello informing council of the appointment of Courtney, is it Ryman?
Raymond?
Ryman, to the City of Lebanon Design Review Board for a 5-year term effective retroactively to July 22nd, 2023. Mayor?
So Courtney is filling the role for the representative from the Lebanon Valley Council of the Arts, and this would be an appointment for her, not a reappointment. So she would be new to the Design Review Board, again, for a 5-year term. She's the secretary for the Lebanon Valley Council on the Arts, but she also has a dual role. In her youth, Courtney was very involved with the Envirothon and the environment in general, and she is the land protection director for the Lebanon Valley Conservancy. So her motto is to respect, conserve, and appreciate our natural resources and the environment, but she's also involved, of course, with the arts.
Okay. All right. We appreciate Courtney taking up that position.
And basically, the Design Review Board, they review murals and other street art and make a recommendation to the mayor for approval of those pieces.
And I know the last time we met actually went very smoothly. It's a new board, and it's been a little bit rocky road getting started. But I think the last mural design I thought went flawlessly. So we're coming along. So
Good.
all right. Any questions from anyone in attendance? All right.
Yeah, I have just a question
Oh,
about
I'm
the
sorry.
review board.
Yep.
I'm just curious, what is the average volume of projects such that do get reviewed?
I didn't hear him. I'm sorry.
I'm just curious, what is the average volume of projects that the Design and Review Board review?
We've done what, 3? Yeah.
4.
Okay.
And I think that's one of the things that we as council can help folks in the community understand that if they're going to do some sort of mural, we do have an ordinance. We do have the Design Review Board. It's not to stop art, but it's to ensure that that mural is appropriate for the city. There's a good process in place. So.
Thank you.
So basically, I'll just very quickly say what the purpose is. It's to recognize the value of public art to citizens and visitors as an essential building block for engaging, imaginative spaces that enliven the public realm, foster shared community interactions, celebrate our unique stories and collective history, and inspire us to experience the world with fresh perspectives.
Thank you, Mayor.
You're welcome.
All right. Any other questions? And that is it for our formal agenda for Monday evening. At this time, I'll open it up to council if you have any issues you'd like to bring forth. None? Do? Okay. We do have Abigail Jarbeau would like to address council. Abigail, if you could join us at the podium, and I think you know the deal, name and address. We're going to make sure it's on.
Thank you. How near do I need to be, or is this good enough?
You're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Now, Lebanon has a rental license ordinance, apparently. And I don't think that a lot of the local other cities around or townships or whatever have, do they?
I believe.
So there are some in the county, but you tend to see it be more of a common theme with cities and larger municipalities, but there are other ones in the county.
I see. All right. Well, I am a 78-year-old widow. I have no children. I have no brothers and sisters, and I have, I think that I need some special consideration, okay? I did have a man living in my property. I own two sides of one building. He was living in the one side, and I was living in the other side. And I did get a rental license. However, he moved out at the end of August, 25th of August, he moved out. And apparently, you're supposed to apply for a new rental license at the end of July. And I missed the deadline very briefly. However, I think it was like, my new license, I believe, is from July 9th, no, August 9th, I believe, which isn't very long afterwards. Now, I was told that I would need to get a new rental license because I didn't get in time to show that he had not been there much. And, you know, if you can show 6 months without much use, you can not have to pay that charge. However, he was mostly gone from the property very frequently, from like 7:30 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. So I believe I could have shown, even though he was there, I could have shown that we probably would qualify for no license because of the little usage.
I think it has to be unused completely. It
No.
has to be,
I'll go over that then. If we
Okay.
just want to let her finish,
Okay.
Mr. Chair, I can,
absolutely.
Anyway, no, the rule is that if you can show 6 months of low usage, you don't have to pay for the fee. All right. Now, I am 78 years old, and my mind is not what it used to be. And today, I went to pay my real estate taxes and discovered I had already paid them in June, and I had no recollection of that whatsoever. So I think that I should be allowed special consideration that I missed the immediate deadline. I would like to show you this. You'd like to pass it around?
Sure.
Or don't you want to see it?
Sure.
Yeah. City has paid, there's two of them there. Because I own two properties. So anyway, I am requesting the return of my payment for the rental license. Nobody is living in my property at this time. He moved out July 25th, and I don't think it is just or right that I should have to pay that money. And that's all I have to say on the subject.
okay.
All right.
So if I may, Mr. Chair, I'd just like to shed some information on this because I think you may be a little bit confused with some of the requirements. So first of all, the rental license program runs for a calendar year. It runs from 1/1 to 12/31. Now, because there are so many regulated rental units and so much billing that has to go out, in 2017, City Council allowed us to change the ordinance to spread the billing out throughout most of the year. So you may only get a bill in June or July, but it is for the calendar year that we're in, okay? If on 1/1 you have someone living in your rental unit, or at any time during the year, you have to pay the $40 rental license fee. And the way the ordinance reads is that the only time you can be considered to have the property be classified as vacant and not have to pay the rental license fee is if the unit has been vacant for a minimum of 6 consecutive months during the calendar year, and the unit has not been rented and no security deposit has been accepted at any time during the calendar year. So even if it's rented for 1 day, you have to pay the fee, and you have to give proof of the vacancy in the low utility bills or something like that at the time of application. And then that exemption is valid for the license for the calendar year, but you have to meet all of those things. So if at any time during the calendar year it's rented, you have to pay the $40 license fee.
I had paid the $40 in February.
You paid for 2022
No, it was for.
because we
2022.
found out that it had been rented since last fall, And then sometime in the beginning of the year, in February, we got you straightened out and in compliance and paid for the past due of 2022. And then what you paid for July 1st, which is when your billing period is, depending on what ward you live in, that's for 2023.
Well, in my opinion, I would like to issue a complaint. I feel it's unjust and unright for you to say that if a person's in for 1 day, you have to pay. Also, that you have to pay if you have your mother. My mother's dead. It's not. But I feel it's unjust, and therefore I am requesting a change in this ordinance, and that there should be a consideration of people's age, their ability to know what they're supposed to do, when they're supposed to do it, and so forth. And you can see I didn't know on my taxes. I didn't know I had already paid them. And when I got in there, I had even written the check, which you can see as you look at it. I had even written the check before they told me I already paid it.
Do you remember coming before city council before about this same issue? Not for this year, but
this
when
year?
Davy Kimmel was living there, and then also when, I'm sorry for your loss, but your former husband, you had him living on the other side, and we had billed you, and you came to city council and made a complaint.
You do recognize that my husband was one of the co-owners, and he's still listed
Right.
as a co-owner, even though he's
Right,
dead.
and that's why you did not need to pay the fee then. But what my point was, do you remember coming into city council to talk about that?
No.
Okay.
I'm not dumb because
Right.
you can see I don't remember paying my taxes, but they say I did. And so, so it's certainly possible, but I know I do not remember it.
And that is in the ordinance, I believe. And the tenant was there through August 25th,
July.
or
25th.
July.
July 25th. And according to what I was told, I was under the impression that July 31st was when it had to be taken care of. I did not realize that at the time, or I would have, but I didn't want a rental license for this year. There's nobody living there. I don't plan to have anybody living there. Now, if somebody asks me for a place, I might change my mind, but as of now, nobody is scheduled to be moving.
But you said that's a yearly,
Right.
that's a calendar year, and you had someone there
And I think,
through July.
Mr. Llanos, and you had a conversation, and you said that maybe you would want to rent it again.
It's possible, but right now, against those plans, I prefer not to.
But for 7 months this year, you rented it.
Because somebody needed it. I don't know if anybody needs it and wants it.
Mhm.
They may need it, but they may not want it. Well, anyway, I do not like this ordinance, and I'm requesting that it be changed. I guess you're not going to do it. That's. But anyway, so if I could have my paperwork back. Thank you.
Abigail, thank you. Sorry we can't help you with that this evening. Okay. There, possibly.
I guess you could look at it as your bonus is you don't have to pay your taxes because they're paid. That's a positive.
And you didn't get that $50 charge, so you're way up. So, all righty. All right, and any other questions anyone has this evening for council? Mayor, you're good? All right. With that, we'll see everyone Monday evening at 6:30. Thank you.
Thank you.